Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Just in Time Cafe's webinar. I am Elizabeth Swan, co-founder of the Just in Time Cafe. I'm going to be your moderator today, and today's webinar is titled How to Make It Easy for People to Master Continuous Improvement. And our guest host today is Amanda Zimmerman. And let me tell you a little bit about Amanda. Amanda has facilitated and coached Lean Six Sigma projects for over 10 years. She's got an MBA from Imperial College of London, which sounds very, very classy. And she is a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. She's worked on 4 continents for a variety of industries, from oil and gas to educational software. She's passionate about making continuous improvement tools easy and accessible. And I am so impressed that Amanda has worked in places like Angola and the Antarctic. And she just moved to New Zealand. So 4 continents, and she's working on her 5th. Welcome, Amanda. Are you on mute?
Thank you. Yeah, I was on mute. I was getting there. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for having me. And we'll go ahead and jump right in.
Well, let me just do a few housekeeping notes before we begin. So just so everybody remembers, you can ask questions anytime by entering them into the chat area. Sometimes I see a question pop up in the question area, but sometimes I miss them. So chat, I'm watching. And we welcome your participation. Amanda's got questions throughout the session. She's got a few activities she's going to get you guys to participate in. Videos of our webinars are all available for free. We post them on the Just in Time Cafe website. That is jitcafe.com. And simply check the webinar page for all past webinars. And this one will be up by Monday. So let's get you guys to join us for the first activity that you're already engaged in, which is sharing where you are from. You guys have registered. I always like to find out how international we are. This time we have a host who's incredibly international. So let's just see how the participants stack up here, Amanda. So we've got Jim in Lincoln, Nebraska, Hugo, San Luis Obispo, and you've got Sharon in Seattle, and Joy. Welcome, Joy from Indianapolis. You've got Rodney in New Jersey, and you've got Sam in Fairfield, Iowa. We've got Rachel in the Portland area. All right. Todd, welcome, Todd in Lompoc. Rodney, and Sam, great to see you, Sam from Vancouver. Erin, Santa Fe. Oh, it's warm there. I'm on Cape Cod and it is 28 degrees. I want to be in Santa Fe or San Diego, or Mark, and Maria in Ireland. Okay, we are officially international. Thank you so much, Maria. Tracy's in Iowa. Oh, Tracy, nice to see you from the Iowa Lean Consortium. And we've got Cindy from San Diego. Welcome, Brandon in Ohio. Tanya in I can't even pronounce it. Ontario. Canada. Which also makes us international. And then we've got, is it Cheek from Mauritania? I don't even know if we had anyone from Mauritania before that. Incredibly exciting. Another Amanda in Vermont, a Mary in Kansas, an Erin, who worked with you in Antarctica.
Yeah,
oh, welcome.
She's got some great stories about continuous improvement in Antarctica.
Might have to have you come to the cafe and tell us some stories, Erin. Marcia, Julie, Ryan, Nicole, Charles, my goodness. We have an awesome lineup here. And Lynn Emmons from Arizona, my goodness. I have not seen you in so long. Oh, Ruben, Bolivia. Man, this is a classy. Rachel grew up in the Congo. Yes, it does help our international flavor. Thank you so much. Not to downplay anyone like Dean in Ohio, and Regina in Saskatchewan. Man, thank you, everybody. What an awesome group, Amanda. You are good. I'm getting carried away with our people. So pass the baton to you. Take it away.
Yeah, I think we have 4 or 5 continents there at least. So that's That's really fun and exciting for me to see some familiar faces there as well. Thanks so much, Elizabeth, for having me. As you said, I'm Amanda Zimmerman, and I am joining you today from Bulls, New Zealand, where life is incredible. Everything here has a bull name in this little town in the middle of nowhere. So, so I'm kind of participating in that. And I'm here to talk to you today all about how we can make it really easy for people to master continuous improvement. So whether you're new to the industry or a seasoned mentor, I hope you think differently about some of the systemic barriers and those natural barriers that we have in adopting something new so that we can start to apply those tools with more confidence. Now, we're going to have some activities throughout today, but first I'm going to do a little intro here and talk more about what the session's going to look like. So I'll tell you a little bit more about me in just a few minutes, but just to let you know, I started my career in Six Sigma. So as you mentioned, in Angola. And I would say when I look at the complexity of the different trainings that we have, Green Belt to me, or Six Sigma, is one of the most complex trainings that people take that are completely new to the industry. Now, I started my Master Black Belt in oil and gas in Angola, and I was teaching Green Belts and mentoring them in their DMAIC projects. And what I found was that only about half of people actually started a project after they took Green Belt. And only maybe about half of those ended up actually completing their projects. Now, these are just estimates on my side. They're not perfect numbers. I don't have all the data behind them, but I've heard similar numbers from other consultants and other Master Black Belts. So I've coached or led over 100 successful projects, but those aren't the ones that end up sticking with me. It's those that took the courses and then walked away, those that started the project but never finished it. So those people that we've seen in tears over the years over their project that didn't go forward, that they were so excited about, those are the people that stick with me. And that's actually kind of where I get really passionate about making this easier for us to digest, to take out, to apply to our day-to-day jobs. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself, and then we're going to talk about some of those systemic challenges. So those things that are just present in the industry. So where we've, as an industry, made it hard for people to adopt these new tools. And then we're going to talk about just in general things that make it hard to adopt new tools. So that resistance that people might feel. I call these confidence deflators, right? You go out, you feel good, and then this happens and it just takes you down. So then we'll wrap it up. We'll talk about those awesome podcasts and webinars that Just in Time Cafe has coming up, and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So I'm Amanda Zimmerman. I am a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, and I've had the opportunity, as we mentioned, to work all over the world. I started my career as a history teacher. I thought I was going to be a history teacher, but what I found when I got into the classroom was that children in large quantities were not going to work for me. So as a result, I ended up crying my way into a temp agency. Into a temp agency and ended up making copies at an oil and gas company. And I eventually moved up from there into process improvement. Then I was recruited to go to Angola. I spent a little over 5 years there. And at some point I wanted to move out of oil and gas. And that's when I ended up at Imperial College of London, working on my MBA. And I'll actually reference my dissertation a few times here, where I researched looking at the integration of Lean Six Sigma with sustainability methodologies. After that, I ended up in Portland and, as we mentioned, worked for an education software nonprofit as their Lean Six Sigma manager. And then I decided I need to balance that and ended up in Antarctica. So I came home to the US right after COVID, and I had met my partner in Antarctica. And then I planned to move forward as an independent consultant with my company, Beautiful Opportunities. And I've led online self-study courses for over 1,000 learners in India since then. I'm just launching a program to help to make projects get completed, help people get mentored in there. And as we mentioned, most recently, I moved to New Zealand. So before I kind of jump into our next topic, I want to kind of go back to that moment when I first started in continuous improvement. I was in my mid-20s, driving a Prius, going out to the oil fields of California and preaching to everybody about improvement. I was talking to a lot of high-powered managers that had more come to Jesus meetings than I could count. And you know, in the oil fields, they call them roughnecks, and there's a reason. It's a tough place to work. People out there are really tough. And I was out there doing observations, watching them work all day, doing what they would call bird dogging them, right? So it was a really challenging place to go out and apply these tools. And then I would call those guys in from the rig to come in and do an exercise on the whiteboard, which was really expensive and a lot of change for them. It was quite different for them to do something like that. And I had mentors that would say, no, that's not the way we did it at GM. I've been doing this for 35 years. You don't know, you know, so we had those challenges happening at the same time when I first started. And somehow through all of that, I swallowed my fears. I mustered up all my confidence, and day in and day out, I just did my best. Sometimes I woke up with knots in my stomach. Sometimes I walked out of meetings with sweat dripping down or needed to go to the bathroom and organize my thoughts and emotions for a minute. But I know that I am not the only one that's experienced that. I know I'm not alone. And I know because I've had students over and over again tell me similar stories, ask those same questions that I was asking. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is to go ahead. We're going to drop a link here into the chat. And what I want you to do is tell us about your what you found challenging when you first started continuous improvement. So let me go ahead and just drop that link in the chat for you. And so while we chat, Elizabeth and I are going to chat for a moment here. But while we do that, I want you to go ahead and go to that link. And I want you to share 2 or 3 examples of things that were challenging when you first started. So you don't have to qualify them necessarily in saying a lot or a little, but what were some of the things that you saw as a challenge? So Elizabeth, I don't know if you're willing to share some of the things that you found challenging when you first started.
You mean with helping people?
With leading continuous improvement.
Yeah, I think one of the early issues is just what exactly is the problem? You know, really getting clarity around what are you tackling? Because, you know, over time you realize, oh, you've got to be really specific. You know, you can't just say, you know, we're just going to streamline this thing. It's like, well, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? Good, we're getting some good responses here so far. Let's see, defining the problem. Did you have any hesitation in terms of getting up in front of a group or leading some of these activities using the tools?
Let's see, if it was to teach folks, what I found pretty quickly was it's better to engage and ask folks, because I think the pressure on yourself as a teacher, or even as the folks you're asking to present their own stuff, you know, some people just are, this is, you know, death to them. Being up in front of a crowd is one of the biggest fears, you know, that humans can have. So turning it into a conversation seemed to be like, let's go down that road instead. But realizing that folks were petrified and put a lot of pressure on themselves to, you know, present. Like I realized that could be a challenge right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liliana, thank you. I see you're sharing in the chat. So once you've shared in the forum, you can go ahead and share in the chat. We'll see, we'll take a look at some of these responses here in just a second. Yeah, I think that that's something that we don't always acknowledge when we first get into continuous improvement, is that you'll be facilitating events in front of people and have to speak in front of people, and that can be pretty intense. Let's see. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw in here what we have so far, and we'll see how that starts to come together here. Let's see. So when we look at this kind of in a word cloud view, we can see some of the different things that maybe we have in common. So change, defining the problem, like you mentioned, management, getting that management buy-in. That's a really hard piece of it. Resistance, hostility. Wow, that's quite a word that someone used. Hostility. Moderating. Words. Right? To me, all those terms, that can be really confusing when you first get started. Awesome. So this is really cool to kind of see that we have so many things in common, and that, it's normal to feel some of these challenges. Eamon, people, right? Isn't that funny how much people influence the success of a project and how challenging that can be? So we'll keep coming back to kind of thinking about these different issues here as we talk on today. But what I want us to tackle first is just kind of looking at this, some of the systemic barriers. So we've all experienced some of these challenges of continuous improvement when we first started, right? Now, I see life as a journey, and and I find continuous improvement a particularly challenging road to navigate. I might even say in some ways it's inefficient the way we teach it and try to navigate this road. Now, when we start our journey, we learn the tools or the rules of the road, how to drive the car essentially. But then we get in the driver's seat and take off. Our road isn't straight. It's got all kinds of curves. It's got speed bumps telling us to slow down just when we think we've got the hang of it, and stop signs that can leave us confused and unsure if we can continue forward. Although all that was in the book when we signed up, we could have seen that some of those issues are going to exist. But then as we start to get out on the road, we start to see so as we get off the road or onto the road, our confidence starts to grow. We get more confident in knowing what to expect. We know the road's going to be curvy. We know there's going to be speed bumps. But then the rain starts. That pouring rain that makes it hard to see out the window. A deer might run in front of you. Your map might start saying rerouting. All of these are really normal challenges for us to experience, especially when trying something new. And now our confidence has been impacted by all of these other variables, all these other factors. And it can make us want to just pull over, get off the road, and say, I'm not up for these challenges. And so this is what it can be like for new practitioners to Lean Six Sigma or continuous improvement or whatever we call it. These are the speed bumps and stop signs, the way the road is designed. These systemic challenges are present in the industry. It's from the way we teach our history, the culture of CI, and the way our networks have evolved. You're probably going to be challenged to make changes here, but if you see them differently, you can choose different paths around them and help others choose different paths around them. The second piece here are those natural barriers, those things that just make us naturally resistant to change, that make it hard for us to adopt something new. Regardless of what you're learning or adopting, you're going to face some of these challenges. It's going to rain sometimes. The map isn't always going to be perfect. So I've just called out a few of the major ones here, like the complexity of our methodologies and tools, the risk that we take on as we stand up in front of a crowd, and our confidence that these tools are actually going to work. Are they actually reliable? So let's talk about continuous improvement. We can say that continuous improvement started with Eli Whitney and Henry Ford. Thinkers like Deming brought back tool sets from Toyota and taught quality across the United States. Bill Smith and Motorola coined the term Six Sigma, and Jack Welch disseminated it and helped it gain traction across businesses. This is the indisputable history of continuous improvement. And if you get a quote wrong, if you get a year wrong, someone will be able to correct you because they were either there or they took a class or they know without a doubt what that real story is. Now, I said earlier that I have a bachelor's in history. One of my first revelations when I started my history degree was that history changes. History isn't stable. It isn't indisputable. Like CI, history is about research, finding and vetting facts that you can interpret to put the full picture together. A new artifact and a new story emerges. And by far, history is written by the winners, those that led the pack or best advertised what they were doing, or left information behind that someone actually found. What I'm trying to say is that the history of CI as we teach it, bear with me, is kind of bullshit. As long as humankind has existed on this earth, we've sought to improve our work. The pyramids of Giza, the trading ships, the winemakers, the builders of Angkor Wat. Do we think none of them knew about the waste of motion or inventory or understood that they wanted fewer defects? Do we not think that these previous peoples didn't have their own paths to efficiency, to making their work better? Last week, I had someone tell me something that could have come from me because I've said it a million times. She said, it's just the way my brain works. It's just logic. We don't always know what the tools are called. We don't always know that it has a name. We just know logically that if we take these actions, the process will be more efficient. We have people daily unintentionally creating or stumbling over these same tools. So I want to propose to you that there are limitless paths to efficiency. Toyota, Deming, Agile, these are just the ones that got marketed the best. And absolutely, the structure and story is wonderful. It creates a common language. It helps us to be able to share these tools across different industries, across different people. But we don't need to tear people down for not psychically knowing that 50 years ago, someone developed something similar. Their discoveries, their achievements in tripping over these tools, it's important and it's wonderful. There are limitless paths to improvement. So you've landed here today because you followed a path towards growing and learning. Now, many of us have taken training or had mentors that taught us about the current seminal texts and methodologies, the language that we use today to describe the tools we are using to increase value in our organizations. Now, that coach or mentor didn't appear out of nowhere, and the culture that person experienced gets unintentionally passed on and on through each person that they teach, whether they realize it or not. Now, I feel like I get a glimpse of CI culture each time I go to a mixer or a networking event. So I don't know about you, but I've tried a lot of different things to say who I am, what I've done, what my job is, how do I describe my job to someone at a mixer. And so what I've started to do is I just say, I'm a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt consultant. And I'll tell you, there's two reactions that I usually get. One, people nod, and then they change the subject, which means they have no idea what a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt consultant is. The other one is they make like a wincing face, a look that makes me feel like I have a spider on my face. This comes from their experience of CI, and I feel like it comes more specifically from our culture. Our culture has been really born from the manufacturing industry. The industry today faces an aging workforce, a perception that it's a gloomy and boring place to work, a lack of diversity. Now, obviously, this is based, not necessarily based on the place that you work or manufacturing as you've seen it, but those are issues that are facing that industry. Now, a lot of this also came out of the auto industry, a place where there have been layoffs and instability in the US over the last 50 years. So this has certainly contributed to the number of people that transitioned from manufacturing into consulting, where there was more opportunity. Moving to an industry that has its own challenges and its own issues within its culture. So consulting can often be a game of egos. Honestly, it's been dominated by white men. It's a culture that rewards complexity. The more complex a project is, the more you can sell to your client, the harder it would be for them to take it, and to be able to do that, the more billable hours we're going to get. I've personally seen people within what I would call a traditional culture, or Wall Street culture is how I sometimes refer to it, speak about women in a way that's so objectified that I've actually had to leave engagements. So many of these teams also have gone into private equity, where they focus not on what's best for people and community, but how to make more money. This ends up meaning layoffs. It ends up pushing projects that people don't necessarily feel good about afterwards. It leads to people looking at me like I have a spider on my face. So the good news is this isn't a forever problem. We're growing and improving as a society, as an industry, and a range of voices are starting to shape our future generations. We're seeing more and more diversity. In just a couple of years, a Women in Lean group on LinkedIn has now 1,000 women raising their voices and demonstrating that the story and the face of lean is just one of many, right? It's not just the one face that we've seen before. It's not just a manufacturing discussion anymore. The tools are being adapted in a variety of industries for incredible benefits. Healthcare, software is taking it on. And there's all kinds of new ways that we're applying these tools. In addition, since COVID, many of us have embraced technology, adding new and inventive ways for us to connect and talk, and having really positive impacts on our communities and people as we embrace things like environmental sustainability and kindness campaigns. So if you've ever had somebody wince or somebody look at you like you have a spider on your face, I'm excited to tell you it is changing. And we have more and more professionals creating positive experiences for people. So let's talk about some of these connections. So this is kind of some information, this networking that comes out of my dissertation and looking how these different networks perform together. So this network here is just a really simple one. It's just a star pattern. So each node or person, that person in the middle or group, is linked to others in the node. This is a really simple network. It's straightforward. It has a lot of short pathways. Everyone's connected to something central. This might be something like maybe US airline pilots and the FAA. They all have a really short link to that so that there's a center of knowledge. Lean Six Sigma or Lean or Six Sigma or continuous improvement or process improvement or quality, whatever we're calling it, it's not like that. It's not this short little pathway. In Lean Six Sigma, we have an issue with a lack of short pathways. We have a lot of clicks and we have a lot of connections. We have so many consultancies, in-house programs, and professional certifications, we can't keep up. We don't have one main node, but dozens in each industry. And each industry has its own center, right? Its own groups. So we have all these Lean Six Sigma groups and networks, but then we also have industry-specific ones like oil and gas or healthcare. Not only is this the application of the tools, but also we're talking about the certifications, the training, right? The way that we teach these. There's an inherent lack of cohesion or lack of short pathways to the knowledge in continuous improvement. All of these different programs end up operating independently, creating their own proprietary tools and approaches, which become standardized within that small clique. This puts a ton of pressure on people who are bridges between those two different worlds that are now faced with having to translate while they apply the tools in a way that is universally accepted. This is an impossible task. Now, I can say all of this in an easier way. CI is not standardized. The network itself has barriers. That means new tools do not easily flow across the network. It is not standardized. There's no way to know it all. It's not possible. There isn't a handbook. There isn't a right or wrong that can tell you everything. Now, being in New Zealand has been quite a journey for me, quite an experience for me. And it's a lot different being here as a resident versus being here as a visitor. And one thing that's driven me kind of crazy is just these little nuances between different words. So things like they call it mincemeat, I call it ground beef. Windscreen instead of windshield, the gurgler instead of the garbage disposal. Right? And even if I say those words instead of what I'm used to, I'm still not going to pronounce them the same, right? Or I can go to a region where now they call it something different or pronounce it different. Continuous improvement is the same. We have dialects, we have accents. And just because you say it different or call it something else, it doesn't mean you're wrong, which for me personally is really uncomfortable. I want to know it all. I want to do it perfectly. How come I can't figure it all out? But I'm not always going to know it all. It's not all in the Lean Six Sigma Pocket Toolbook. Being in this industry is going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. right? So as we look at these system challenges, as we set off on the road, as it was built, we can see that those issues don't need to block us, but can actually empower us. The culture is changing. We are becoming more open and inclusive and raising voices, which means more ideas. The network is a mess, so we can be sure that nothing is for sure. And just like our history, we can rely on the fact that there are limitless pathways to improvement. Adopting the tools and methodologies allows us to speak the same language, even if there's a lot of different dialects. Now, all of this is just within continuous improvement as an industry, as a culture. We haven't even touched what makes these tools hard for people to adopt. What are some barriers that people have to adopting a new idea? So let's talk a little bit more about that. Now, I like to call these confidence deflators. So years ago, for example, I was driving out in Florida, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, to me, rain just came pouring down so hard that I couldn't even see. Right? I put on my windshield wipers, I slowed down to 20, but still, I could barely drive on the freeway. This is what happens with some of these adoption challenges, is we understand the rules of the road, we're a confident driver, but then this downpour happens and it just takes away our confidence. So I am going to ask you to participate again. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to explain it before we go ahead and talk in the chat here, and then it'll give me a chance maybe to catch up on the chat. So in just a moment, I'm going to show you a picture, and we're going to do 2 rounds of this. And what I want you to do is, all I want you to do is put in the chat what the picture is. So you're going to put that in the chat, but you're not going to hit enter. So you're going to write the name of the tool that I put up, but you're not going to hit enter. Now we're going to do 2 rounds of this. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to type this into the chat, but don't hit enter. And then I will say when to hit enter, and all of us will post it at the same time. Right? Okay, here is the picture. And I'll give us a few moments here to go ahead and write in the chat what it is. Oh, don't hit enter yet. It's okay, it's inevitable.
It is. The suspense. What's going to happen?
All right. All right, I'm going to give us just 5, 4, 3, 2, hit enter. Okay, let's see these different answers that we have. So we have fishbone. I would say fishbone's about 80%. Dead plant, Sam, I like that. So I didn't say it had to be a Lean Six Sigma tool. Ishikawa diagram, right? This is another thing that we talk about it. Fishbone diagram, fishbone, Ishikawa. Okay, so we've got 3 different answers here. Now I know for me, sometimes you get to know these tools, you use them over and over again. I know my fishbone diagram, I've got it up on the board, but now I'm 2 years into continuous improvement and someone asked me about an Ishikawa diagram. It's really scary. You've never heard this word before. And now you have to go up and you have to use that tool. And then you look it up online and you find out you've been using it all along, right? So all of these different names for the same tool. Let's try one more. So I'm going to put this up, give you a few seconds again, and then we'll all hit enter at the same time.
Yeah, this one has a little bit.
Could go a few different directions.
The other one, did you see one person wrote Fishikawa? Have you ever heard that one?
No, I didn't, but I like that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that was Brian.
It's awesome.
No, this one I'll be really fascinated.
Oh yeah, Fishikawa.
Yeah.
Very good.
I love that. And no one said cause and effect diagram, which is what the original name was, right? We've all moved on.
Oh, we have one. Rodney did.
Oh, you did?
Rodney,
Okay.
Yeah, I learned it as the CNX diagram.
CNX.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause and effect. Just nowhere as fun as fishbone.
No. One of my students once made a shark out of it. And that was just the cutest thing I thought at the time. All right. So we'll do the countdown again. So 5, 4, 3, 2, hit that enter button. Ooh, all kinds of things. Cost benefit analysis, effort versus impact, Eisenhower decision matrix.
Had
Ooh,
not heard
Larry.
that.
Pick chart. Johari window. Yeah.
Ooh.
Now, one of the things that shocked me about this one when I got into my MBA class was that it was called a 2x2. And there were books about the 2x2. And I realized after starting this lesson that I thought I knew nothing about, that I'd been using 2x2s for years. Right? So we've got a lot of pick chart.
Do you see the big easy?
Difficulty.
Terry calls it the big easy for big impact, easy effort. I never heard that. Yeah.
But see, this is where we get into some of those clicks, right? Where that's a great name. We could adopt that. Now we start calling it that. And in our little circle, our little network, we have that name. But if we talk to other people, they might not know what that is. Cool. Frank, big easy. Yeah, very good. Awesome. Well, thank you all for participating. And these were really awesome names. And I think it kind of highlights that point that we don't even have a standardized way of talking about all of these tools, right? There's so many different ways that we talk about them. Oh, and some people say that they invented them, right? This is something that we definitely run into, especially when you start to teach them or you lead events and people come up to you with these challenges. So let's talk about some of these barriers that we're going to experience when we actually get out there and we're actually supposed to apply and use these tools and how scary that can be. So let's talk about complexity. Now, I think about this quite often when a few years ago, I went to buy a car. I wanted another Prius, but when I got into it, the dashboard lit up like it was the Starship Enterprise. There were just buttons and lights everywhere. And so I just got out and I walked away. That wasn't going to be my car. Now, to be fair, all of those features, all of those lights were probably something that added value and that I wanted. However, it was just too much. It was too complex. So we just walked away. I just walked away. And that's sometimes how I think we teach these tools. We teach them in a way that's very complex. These are very complex tools, and we teach them sometimes like a water hose, tool after tool after tool. There's so many, some with different names, as we saw. There's so many nuances, so many rights and wrongs, because this naming exercise didn't even get into how you do the diagrams. I've seen people do the downtime wastes on a fishbone. What is that called? I don't know. There's so many different nuances to these. And then you throw in their statistics and you throw in there all this math, right? It's a lot for someone new to digest. So let's think about how we can make it easier for people to approach the tools for the first time. How can we build skills that help keep it simple, but enable application? So when I worked in Africa, in Angola, the power would go out sometimes. And whenever the power went out to the camp, people still had to go in and out, and they had badges. And each time we entered the camp, when the power was on, we would click our badge, it would make a little bing sound, and we would enter the camp. However, when the power was out, we still had to hold our card up to the badge reader. We could make our own bing sound, but then we had to walk through, right? So we continued to do this exercise, whether the power was on or off. And I think this is the same thing that I see with people out on the floor that are using some of these tools. So the training taught them how to make the Pareto chart or put up the Kanban board. They know how to move the Post-its, but they don't know why they're moving the Post-its. What's the intent of the tool? Why are we using the Kanban board? We haven't taught them enough about the intent of the tool, but we've shown them how to make the graph. To me, this is the most important shift in thinking we need to undergo. It's more important to align to the intent of the tool. Why are we using the tool? Than to teach all the nuances of the tool. Otherwise, we have people holding up their badges and making that bing sound themselves, essentially. We have a lot of Kanban boards that don't have width limits that need them. We have Pareto charts that have 100 bars going off and off and off. These tools are really complex, and there's a lot of them. You can't know them all. You cannot even know the name to them all. So rather than focusing on trying to perfect the application of each tool in a specific standardized scenario, let's get real. That approach leaves people unable to actually have the tools apply at their work. It's too hard. It's too complex. It's great for consultants, but not for the student. Now, I did an activity once where I had the students at a software company actually go out and research a tool that was traditionally manufacturing. Then they came back and they gave a presentation on how it could be applied at their work. And their examples blew me away. One of them on a 5S on a piece of software is still one of the coolest adaptations that I've seen. Critical thinking is required for continuous improvement. It is required. So let's teach people to use that muscle, learn the intent of the tool, and teach them how to research how to use it, the step-by-step activities that are involved. You'll be blown away by the results. Not only are these tools complex, complicated, but we teach people often how to use them in a very limited context without really giving them a ton of facilitation practice or coaching. Then we throw them in front of a team and we want them to perfectly use the tool to find out the secret cause that nobody's been able to figure out for the last 10 years. I don't know about you, but that just gives me anxiety just thinking about it. How many of us put down facilitation or using the tools as one of the hardest pieces of CI when we started? Did you know you needed to be such an effective change manager? I know change was listed as one of those challenges that we faced. Maybe you didn't realize that was going to be such an integral part. Being a CI leader has a lot of risks. People, for me, often PhD trained people, end up staring at you while you're doing an activity on the board with them, leading them through that activity. And all the while you might be thinking, am I doing this right? Are people going to laugh at me at work? Are they going to say you did that all wrong? Is your manager going to support those changes? Is your mentor going to say that that wasn't quite right? I actually invented it and this is the right way to do it. Are engineers going to spend endless hours telling you why that's not going to work? Now, honestly, I can't address all of those risks and make you feel better about all of them. They're present. This is a risk that we ask people to take. This is what we're asking them to do, is to take these risks. But there's a secret here that they don't tell you in class. And Elizabeth already mentioned it earlier. Now, I've looked at my chart, or my weight on a chart for the last 15 years. I've watched it rise, and I hope it goes down. And then I think, oh, I'm going to change, but it doesn't change, and then it kind of goes up, right? So doing the analysis, having the chart, having the sidewalk, doing the CNX diagram on the board, that doesn't change anything. That doesn't change anything. I can continue looking at that graph and it doesn't make me change my behavior. It's the conversations. It's the aha moments, the realizations, the connections that you're enabling. You're illuminating dark spots. You help people see what they haven't before and influence them to improve while they do it. You can do the fishbone, bring it in and have everyone agree, but it doesn't change anything. When you work as a team and you're there to merely provide conversation starters through the use of these tools, you're taking them on a journey to look at the right things so that they trip over the truth, so that they make changes. And at the same time, that's a lot less pressure on you. So shift your thinking from perfectly running a tool to creating conversation starters that change the way people see their process. So finally, our last example of the day. So despite all the complexity and the risks, you've decided to move forward, but then you're saying, how do I know this is actually going to work? Do I get to try it? How can I be sure that this tool is actually going to help us get to the root cause? So I go on a lot of hikes. And I really like long hikes. And throughout each day on the hike, I'm thinking about that final destination or that peak that we're trying to get to. And I think in continuous improvement, when we read the books, when we go to the classes, we look at the process and we can see that peak. We can see that destination that we want to get to. But this causes us to misinterpret the progress that we make along the way. This isn't a marathon, or this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. We see, as CI professionals, the end of the trail. We see this lofty destination that we are going to, but it's actually incremental change, and we're not going to get there overnight. So as I said, I started my career in Six Sigma before moving to lean transformations and other tools. So I tend to take a DMAIC approach to everything. That's the structured problem solving tool that I lean on. And each DMAIC meeting, regardless if we are in analyze or improve, whatever phase we're at, in each meeting, we do a quick review of what we've accomplished in the previous phases. Once we've made changes, we meet a final time with management to present and review the entirety of our progress. We also take a moment to talk about those indirect benefits. And I will tell you, even at projects that I thought we could have done so much more, why couldn't they have just done this? That was so simple. It was just this little bit more. The ones where I feel like I failed. In this final meeting, the pride and excitement of the team, the celebration between the team of what they've accomplished. For me, this is a jarring experience. I see the peak. I see the end of the hike. I see where we wanted to go. But we're not going to get to the peak in this one project. We're going to make progress that sparks momentum, that gets us to that next checkpoint, that gets us through that next day. So if you're a CI person and you feel like you're not making progress, I want to make sure you're creating these moments for the team to celebrate. Because in their words and in their pride of what they've done, you're going to realize what impact you have actually had. So I'm not going to lie, I jammed as much as I could into this hour for you all, always with the intent of making continuous improvement easier. So I hope through this, we've realized that there are limitless ways that we can get to our destination. Things are changing to make the culture better and more welcoming. It won't ever get comfortable because we have such a unique and flexible network of people, which is wonderful. And I hope as you coach or set off on your journey, you flex that critical thinking muscle, align to the intent of each tool, then utilize those resources or people that can help you make them perfect. Make sure you value the conversations and the connections that you're making and celebrate along the way. The CI road can be really intimidating, but it doesn't have to start that way for people. It doesn't have to be that way. There's a lot of pathways to the beach or to the improvement, whatever it is that you're going towards, right? You can take an alternate route. You don't have to take that curvy, hard road. It's smoother. You'll find a lot of like-minded people there that are off to the side celebrating each mile that they're making. Now that's what I have for you today. And I know we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about any of your questions that you've had. So you can put those in the chat. But Elizabeth, did you want to tell us a little bit about what we have coming up with the webinars and podcasts at Just in Time?
Yeah, I did. And thank you. But also just appreciating how great that was and fun to listen to. And yeah, so anyway, you've got my brain stirring, Amanda, which is great.
Good.
But I wanted to let people know coming up on the 17th of March, and just by registering for this webinar, you're going to get emails from us. So you get a chance to register again if you don't do it now. But this one is a really interesting, it's going to be an interactive session. Every once in a while we do those where it's in a meeting format. And here's the link for that if you want to join us. But this is someone who's coming to show us, they use time studies. They had basically they couldn't handle the volume. So they thought, oh, we just need more people. But they did a really good deep dive and tried to understand their processes. And it kind of puts us in the position of guessing what the solution was, which will be fun. So that will be an interactive session on March 17th. And the other one, I just wanted to let you know about on the next slide is an ongoing course that Tracy and I, if you want to flip one more slide, Amanda.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry. Podcast. Yes. For those of you who didn't get to listen to the last episode, this was with Gemma Jones, a phenomenal episode, just looking at what we have as access to people, right? If you think about Lean, Six Sigma, Kata, whatever it is, you are on the front lines, you are talking to people, you are forming relationships, you know what people's struggles are. And Gemma is basically working on what are the tools we need if people are in trouble in terms of mental health and just suicide prevention. It's a phenomenal episode. She's got great tools for us. So check out the latest podcast episode. Oh, and I didn't give you the link for that. I'm sorry. And when one more slide, I'll just remind you that, whoops. Oh, I didn't put the other one up there.
There's a slide for the class.
I didn't put the class up there, and that's fine.
Sorry.
But I wanted to give you back to you. Let me give you more time, you guys more time if you have questions for Amanda.
Okay, yeah. So I'm open to any questions, and thank you so much, Elizabeth, and everybody here today for joining. If you want a copy of my dissertation, I know I referenced it a few times here. You can shoot me a message at LinkedIn or my email. I am kicking off, just to let you know, a program, Finish Your Greenbelt, while I wait for my visa here in New Zealand. It's at no cost to help mentor people that maybe have taken Greenbelt training, but they're struggling to actually move their project forward. I do have a few more slots, and if you message me today, you'll get to vote on what times that we meet. So that kicks off on March 7th. So you can also message me for that. And then I want to find out if there's any questions. I know I saw prepare to be uncomfortable. Exactly. It's easier when we shine a light in those dark spaces. I always call it the spider in the closet. So I many years ago, I stayed at my dad's, and this spider came out of the vent, and I tried to kill it, and it went into the closet. And there was so much stuff in the closet, there was no way I was ever going to find it. And so I laid down right next to the closet where my bed was, and I just, for the whole night, I knew there was a spider in the closet. Right. And that's how what I think we do with some of these tools is we help people see that spider in the closet, and it's hard to unsee it. Now, I saw somebody up here say something about influencing management, right? And the challenging part of influencing management. Do you think and here's a question from Mary. So do you think changing CI will work better bottom up or top down? How can one individual start to change the culture in their company? So when I come into a new organization, I think of it as marketing. So I am the face of continuous improvement. If I show people how easy it is, how we're going to experiment with these things and we're going to see if they work or they don't work, if they see that, then you become the representation for that for them, right? So they feel more comfortable with, if I fail at this, if I have a mistake, I'm interested in talking to you about it. So one thing is really making sure that you're modeling the behavior that you want to see. The second thing is you are a marketer. So you should be shaking hands, talking to people, finding out which managers are going to be on board and excited, which ones are maybe going to be a little bit more resistant, get some different projects going, identify those people that are going to be out there shouting about how great this program is. Right. So those are some of the things that I definitely start with when I come into a continuous improvement environment to help move that forward. Shaking a lot of hands, smiling a lot, trying to show people that the change can be really positive. And then the third thing there would be the social proof. So you've got to get some quick wins. You've got to show some people that this is actually going to work. So it's really important that you identify really quickly when you get on the ground what's going to work, and that you're able to actually share that. And I'll just mention here, I always have a concept of the week, and I know my office is bare because I've just moved, but my concept of the week is CAR, which is a behavioral interview tool that you can use. So challenge, action, result. So sometimes I'll take my projects and I'll put them into that framework so that I can really communicate them quickly. So maybe, taking them and putting them into that framework so that you can talk to people about the projects when you have those quick wins can be important as well. All right. Are there any other questions?
I did see one.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Is it that one? What can be the relationship between CI and continuous learning? I think that would really depend on the organization that you're at and how they're embracing continuous learning. Certainly, if you have the ability to fold your CI program into a continuous learning program that they already have, that's going to be a huge bonus. For me personally, I'm somebody that wants to learn all the time, which I think is one of the reasons that CI has appealed to me, because continuous improvement, continuous learning, we're always working to get a little bit better each and every day. So I think there's a great relationship there. And Larry, thank you for the example. Awesome, Sam. Good, good. You're excited for the Greenbelt project class. Awesome. Any other questions? Elizabeth, did you see any more there, or is there anything else that you wanted to recap before we go?
I think a lot of it was, I will recap what I'm reading, which is very inspiring, great presentation, well thought out, lots to consider. So I want to echo that and thank you for just bringing these, the perspective that you brought, which is really great. I mean, there are things that we all wrestle with in terms of, you know, the different schools of thought, what's the right way, what's the proper history, and just like, to your point, you know, a lot of us have been doing this for a long time, whatever we've called it.
Was it 1986 that Bill Smith coined the term, or was it 1987? Or what if I say it wrong?
What exactly did they mean by PDCA?
Yeah.
And should be CA or SA, and is it just direct?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So really refreshing to just sort of go, hey, this doesn't have to be that hard. And I'm right there with you. I love it. So
awesome. Awesome.
Thank you
for setting the scene and letting me share today.
Oh man, thanks for coming. We'll expect you back. I know it's a long way from New Zealand, but the cafe is here for you, Amanda. It's here for you.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
And thanks to all of you. And we'll see you guys here, hopefully in March at the next one. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.